everybody, and welcome to the Open eCrime Market Commentary for the week of July 22nd. My name is Toby Gennaro from Trade with Precision, and we're just coming to you this week with the outlook for the markets. And so let's take a look at the equity markets here, looking at the index futures as we normally do, the big cap stocks with the ES futures contract. And we'll just work our way down here from some of the higher time frames, like the monthly chart that we have up currently. And any of you guys have been following these commentaries. We're really pretty much on a 4-year bull run here in the markets, as you can obviously see. We've been nothing but straight up with some great pullbacks, even on the monthly chart. But recently, we just kind of had this pullback here on the weekly chart, and just gave us basically this setup candle. Really didn't get a pullback even back into any significant level as of yet before we took off again to the races. But really, the chart that we've been looking at here for the last several weeks was really the weekly chart, and just waiting for that. We got kind of a couple of setup candles right here, and never really got the break of the high of those. But then we got a very nice setup candle here right in and amongst that buy zone between the 10-20 period moving average, broke the high of that candle, and we've just been off to the races for close to 4 weeks now. So things are looking pretty bullish. The last time we had this kind of a run was just right back here. We got a pullback right back into the 10 period moving average. Then as soon as we got the bullish candle in the break, went basically for a 4-week run there. So looks like we're doing the same thing here. Not really sure quite as of yet how much more the market's got on it yet. Just don't really see any signs of weakening here. There's some slight divergence here on the weekly chart, but this is a pretty strong trend. Going down to the daily chart, don't really see a whole lot of difference here. The only other level that goes back to the year 2000 is right around 1709. So we're currently up around 1690. So we could have another maybe a 17-point run until we get to that 17, or actually a 19-point run until we get to that 1709 level, and then see what happens there. But there's really nothing in between where we're at now and any type of resistance level. We're pretty much at the highs of where the S&P futures have been in the last 13 years. So going down, the only weakness we see here is we see a little bit of divergence here on the 480 chart, as we have a higher high in place. Then we have some lower highs in place on the MACD and the RSI. Not too major. We also have the same thing there on the 240. So we do have 2 time frames there confirming that. So we might get a little bit of a pullback here and maybe get a little bit of a sideways consolidation before moving higher, but the markets are really looking pretty strong here. We've got a nice rejection candle here on the 60-minute chart, but we're really just kind of consolidating sideways right back into the buy zone, and it looks like it's going to be pushing higher. So I've been looking this week to just looking to buy the pullbacks on some of these lower time frames, the 60, the 120, the 240, and looking for ultimately a pullback on the daily chart for a pullback into the buy zone. But as you can see on some of these runs that we've made on the daily chart, a lot of small candles, not a lot of deep pullbacks right to that 10 period moving average, and then back off to the races again. So things just looking very bullish. We have a little overextension here on the weekly chart, but nothing to be alarmed at. Some slight divergence here on the weekly as well. But this can diverge for quite some time when you get all the charts like this moving in the same direction. That's a pretty strong bullish trend. So the only thing usually in the month of August, we get a little choppy movement. We got some folks around the world doing a lot of vacation time where volumes are decreasing. So you may not see as strong a trends, but you'll see some a little more choppy price action, which basically just might give us a sideways market for a while until everybody comes back in September, and then you might see the markets make a shift at that point. But for right now, things look pretty bullish. I'd be cautious right now since we have just a little bit of overextension here on the daily chart. I'd be looking for a little deeper pullback, maybe on the 480, the 240, back into the moving averages, maybe back up against this level right here around 1680. Maybe give us a good opportunity to potentially look for a trend flow setup and getting along the market again at that point. But for right now, it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of quit in the markets, and it looks like we're just going to continue to push higher until we get some kind of fundamental news that's going to turn things around. And moving down to the small cap equity index, looking at the Russell 2000 contract, and just again from the higher time frames here, looking at the monthly chart, really just just some continuing, just a lot of strength here in the small caps, as you can see. We're pretty much almost toward the latter half of this July candle, but you can see the enormous move there that we've made here in just the last couple of weeks, very similar to the ES. And once again, we were watching that 950 level, got a pullback right back into that 950 level. A couple nice support prior resistance levels there, which had been retested, now turns into support. Got that nice bullish candle right in the buy zone, plus the support level there. Gave it a nice lift for the last couple of weeks, and we're just back off to new highs on the Russell. Moving down to the daily chart, you can see just a whole slew of small candles here. Really don't have any kind of pullbacks here on the daily chart at all. Moving over to the 480 chart, you can see again, just like on the ES, we have some slight divergence here. In strong trends like this, wouldn't worry about that too much. I'd just be looking for some pullbacks back into the moving averages to potentially get long again. As we move down to some of the lower time frames, same thing as the ES on the 240, not a whole lot different there. Some slight divergence, but really just looking for a pullback into the moving averages to get long this trend again. On the only thing that's a little different here is we do have some divergence here on the 60-minute chart, now at the lower time frames, and we did get some divergence here on the 15-minute chart, which we're already seeing that pullback or that sideways consolidation. As far as the 120, looks like we're continuing to converge higher. So things are looking pretty bullish here on the small cap stocks as well. We got a little overextension here on the weekly chart, but there's really I'd probably have to see some kind of a bearish candle or an indecisive candle set up here and get a closeout for the week before I'd begin to think that we're going to get some kind of a pullback, even to maybe a 10-period moving average on this particular chart. So just looking primarily this week for some long trades on some of these intermediate time frames, and looking to follow the strength of the current market and continue to move to the upside. And we'll take a look at one currency pair here, looking at the euro yen, and just looking at the weekly chart, some of the higher time frames here. Obviously, we have just a great formation here, obvious uptrend, higher highs, higher lows. We don't have a lot of overextension here from the moving averages, which I like, and then just looking really at the sideways consolidation here on the daily chart. But most recently, we've got a series here of higher highs, higher lows, moving averages starting to get back into alignment here. Then as we go lower, obviously you can see all the moving averages fanning out right here, clear succession of higher highs, higher lows, and we're just getting this pullback here right back into the buy zone on the 480 chart. So I'd like to see a nice bullish candle close out right here in the buy zone on the 480 chart, and then as we move down to some of the intermediate time frames like the 240, we're right dead in the middle of that buy zone. 10-20 period moving average had a nice rejection candle there, but really looking for a smaller setup candle to help control our risk, give us a guide on our entry and our stop, get something nice and tight. And then we're also looking at something similar right here on the 120-minute chart. So a nice little trend flow strategy setup. Be kind of stalking some of these time frames right here, looking for that one. Even on the 60-minute chart, you probably see this one set up on maybe 2, 3, or 4 time frames. But we already have some nice bullish candles setting up here on the 60-minute chart. We've got a break of the high of those. So I'd just like some confirmation on some of the higher time frames and see some other setup candles to determine if this is going to be a longer move or not, and potentially could be right back up to at least that high right there before seeing another pullback. So things looking pretty strong here on the euro yen, and I'll be looking this week to look out for some of those trend flow setups on some of those intermediate time frames. So there's the outlook for the markets this week. A couple of U.S. indices and a foreign currency pair. I'd like to thank you all for watching the Open Ecry market commentary for the week of July 22nd, and we look forward to speaking to you next week on the Market Update.